This is going to be a general mobility sequence that I do actually most days before I work out, and it kind of just moves multiple parts of your body. So it's a little bit long. I usually do like 5 to 7 reps of each thing, but it's nice. You're on the ground. It's not hard to do. You can do it just about anywhere. I'm going to do most of it on the floor, then I'm going to do a little bit on this bench over here. I'm just going to do a couple reps of each one, but like I said, I do 5 to 7 usually before I start doing stuff. So first thing is going to be on your back. You want to try and maintain the ability to get your arms overhead. So I kind of grab my thumb. I try to keep my stomach engaged a little bit as I reach overhead. And if I can, I try to press my knuckles into the floor. If your shoulder hurts in this position, it's going to feel less painful typically to go wider. So you want to widen your hands as far as you need to where the top of your shoulder doesn't hurt. And you just go up and down. Like I said, if it feels fine, you keep your hands close together, you press into the floor, you come back up, you try to straighten your elbows as much as you can. Like I said, I usually do 5 to 7. I kind of grab each thumb. Next thing I do is I take my hands from here, and let's say if I started off wider, if my shoulder hurt, I scrape down to where I feel like my hands are starting to come off the ground. And I do 5 to 7 of those, just trying to make sure my lower back's not coming off the floor. Next thing I do is I take one arm at a time behind my lower back and I lay on it. And I take it up my back as high as I can. And then I'll show you on both sides, but the hand that's behind me, I take that elbow and I push it into the floor, and then I relax. Push it into the floor, relax. Helps improve internal rotation. The other movements I did improve flexion and external rotation. Then I'll do the other side. I'll push into the floor and hold for a couple seconds, and then relax, and then I'll repeat that. Next thing I do is I'll go down to my hip, and I'll cross over, and I'll just take my hip through as much rotation as I can. Just going from one to the other, not pushing very hard, not holding it there. I'll do the same thing on the other side, not pushing very hard. Trying to respect that if I have any pain with any of this stuff. If this doesn't feel good, then I'll stay in a range where it doesn't hurt, even if I'm here. I cross back over, I grab my ankle and I go inside my knee to try to keep my knee out a little bit. And I just come up to where I feel a little bit of tension back here. Same, about 7 usually. I switch, I go to the other side, I grab the ankle, I put my arm inside my knee. Same, 7. Then I will bring my heels in towards my hips, and I actually go as far as I possibly can to where my heels are off the ground. And I'll raise up onto my toes, and then I'll bring my heels towards the floor, and I feel a pretty good stretch in the front of my quads. Same thing, 7, sometimes to 10 of these. And then I'll walk my feet away to where my heels make contact with the ground, but my knees are still really bent. And I'll push into my heels and squeeze into my glute, which will stretch my quad a little bit, but not as hard as I stretched it in the other position. Then I'll go legs up in the air. It's a great position to stretch your hamstrings without pressure on your back. So I'll kick up and I'll come down. And I'll just go in and out of a tug in my hamstring just to warm it up without pulling too hard at it. With my back support, I'm not putting any excessive pressure on my lower back. And then after I've done 10, I'll stay up here and I'll flex my ankle and I'll point my foot. So I take my ankle through a full range of motion. I get a little tug on my Achilles. Same 10. Afterwards, I like to do a couple knee bends just to make sure I can try to get my heels towards my butt. Then I cross calf over knee, arms out wide, and I rotate. Try to keep my trail arm against the ground. And then I'll switch, calf on knee, and I'll rotate, try to keep my trail arm against the ground. Usually 5 to each side for this one. So that was me rotating my bottom half and keeping a stable upper half. Now I'm going to let one arm go to the side. I'm going to take my top leg and I'm going to pin that knee to the ground. And I'm going to reach back. And then I'm going to roll to the other side. I'm going to take my top knee, inside of my knee hits the ground, I pin it down, and I rotate. One more time to each side. Then I go to my stomach, and I get my hands under my shoulders and I do some pressing up. Trying to do as much back extension as I can. It's a movement that we start to lose over time, so it's one that as we age, we start to get stiffer in this direction because we never move this way. So it's a good thing to try to maintain. Then I like to go flat with my arms out to the side. I take each leg over, typically 5 times. Trying to go as far as I can. I try to have the goal of trying to get my foot towards my hand. Most people are pretty stiff though, so you're probably not going to touch your hand, and that's okay. You should feel like it pulls somewhere in the front side of your body. And then the last one on my stomach is I bring one knee up. I kind of turn towards that knee that comes up, and I press up as I look back towards my foot on that side. This is one I usually don't go all the way down. I'll switch over to the other side. And I'll usually come up on my hands and knees, hands further out so that my back stays pretty flat. More of a stretch through my lat and shoulders so my lower back doesn't round a lot. I tend to keep my thumbs up. Then I'll sit on my butt. I'll cross my legs.
Your fingers.
One foot in front of the other. And I sit up tall and I try to reach forward with a straight back. So I try to make sure my back's not rounding as I do it. And then I'll switch my feet the other way. This way you can see me from the side. Same thing, I try to keep straight back. If you're really stiff, this is one that you might have to push with your hands behind you. Keep your back straight, as opposed to getting here and your hips are tight, so you're stuck like this. You're better off having a straight back as you do it, even if you have to push from behind versus reaching in front. Okay, next one. I'm gonna rotate my hips to the side. This one I try to end up in a line where my foot, my knee, and my foot are in a line. My hand is next to my hip. Once again, I try to keep a tall back and I shift the weight from my butt to my knee. So I'm actively pressing my knee into the ground as my hand crawls forward. I'm not letting my back collapse this way. I'm really advancing my chest forward over my knee, and it's almost like my butt cheek is coming off the ground a little bit. And then I'll switch to the other side. So just so you can see from behind, this hand goes right next to my hip. I use it to prop myself up really tall. And then as my hand comes past my knee, I'm actively pressing that knee into the ground as I keep a pretty tall back. Once again, not doing this. And this one I'll kind of work on transitioning side to side. Last one on my butt. This one I tend to draw one leg in and I tend to take one foot over top. And then I bring my weight forward. I like to kind of hug my knee so that my leg ends up against my chest. This is also a good way to stretch into some ankle dorsiflexion and stretch your Achilles. And then I like to switch. So one leg comes in as one leg goes over top. I use my back hand to push my weight forward. And then I switch. Side to side. So I like these types of movements that I transition in and out of a stretch when I'm not holding anything. And let's see, anything else down here? Oh, yes. So the other one I do is I go into a lateral lunge. So just elbow inside knee, trying to make sure that I push this knee out to the side, and I try to keep this leg straight. And I'm just transitioning side to side. Same, usually around 7. I usually throw in a little bit of wrist mobility where my hands are open. Hands closer together is going to be more stretch on the wrists. Hands wider is a little less. And I'll flip my hands so my fingers point back towards me with straight elbows. And I'll rock back and forward. Easier if I bring my hands closer to me. More stretch if I bring my hands further away. I'll turn them the other way so fingertips point back towards me. Same thing, rocking. Easier with my hands closer to my knees. Harder with them further away. This one's kind of hard. Doesn't look hard, but I'm pressing my knuckles into the ground. It's like a heel raise or a calf raise for your wrists. It's a motion that you wouldn't think, but because we're gripping all the time, I find that this motion is very difficult for people, especially if you try to keep your knuckles or where you have a callus touching on both hands. You'd be surprised how stiff this is. So I'm basically doing that with my weight a little bit more on my hands. So it's a little harder if you see me kind of lifting my legs and putting more weight on my hands. A little easier if I take some weight off my hands. All right, Maverick, hang in there. My 8-year-old is videoing. I got 3 more moves for the neck and then it's all done. These are important though because they're kind of the opposite of this forward head posture. So especially if you had neck pain, if you can maintain this motion, I would say your neck is probably going to be in a lot better shape. So I think about tucking my chin and I keep it tucked as long as I can. And then I hit a point where I have to let that go, and I look up as far as I can. And then my chin comes back down as I come back up out of that motion. It's like a sit-up for your neck, right? So I go back, I get to where I have to let the tuck go, I let it go, I look up. Sometimes when I look up, I can do a little bit of a light turn side to side in this position. Then I make sure that my chin pulls down as I come back up. I usually do 10 of those. If it's hard or if you get tired, sometimes you can use a towel or a pillowcase to support your neck as you do it, if your neck gets really fatigued. After I do that, I actually maintain and tuck the chin, and I slowly turn side to side so that I'm working these deep neck flexors and muscles in the front of my neck as I'm going through a range of motion. And then last, I'll usually turn sideways so that I have whatever I'm on in my armpit. Take my hand kind of behind my back a little bit. And rather than just stretching, right, because we all like to stretch our neck, I am taking it into a stretch, but then I'm engaging the muscle to lift me back out of it. So it's stretching, but also using the muscle at the same time. And usually I'll do 10 of these, and then I'll hold, and then I'll do 10 to 20 where I rotate. Same thing, work on a little bit of lateral neck endurance. And then just to keep myself balanced, we'll do the same thing other side. Okay, same idea. Dropping down through a range of motion. Maverick, you're doing great. Okay, and then 20 rotation. And I think that's pretty good. All right, thanks for videoing, Maverick.